Hi everyone, welcome to the SoccerBeat podcast. We're talking Chiefs tonight. A bit of a sort of breaking story is that Yusuf Maart looks like he's departing Chiefs, and we're going to delve into the whole engine room configuration that Chiefs are having to kind of deal with now after the departure of their captain. Before we get going, guys, about 2/3 of you are listening to the podcast but not subscribed, so please hit that subscribe button. It helps our visibility, and if you like the pod, click like. If you dislike it, click thumbs down and tell us what we can improve in the comments. Okay, so I got Tsepo Masilela and Farouk Khan with me. A big story. Yusuf Maart, we didn't expect him to leave. I even said the other day that unlike maybe Pirates with Mofokeng and Summers with Lucas Ribeiro, Chiefs seem like they're going to keep all their best players and they're not going to be disrupted. But now it looks like that deal is done. He's off to Austria to join Antonio van Beek from Stellenbosch, and Maurits Kosman, who was the DDC coach at Cape Town City, he's based at that club, so that's definitely a connection there. Let's start with Coach. What do you feel about the deal for the player and also for Chiefs accepting this move to to allow their captain to go?
Well, I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and Tsepo will allude to the fact that if you get an opportunity to play in Europe, you take it with both hands. And I think Yusuf Maart is obviously going to take this opportunity to further his career. For Kaizer Chiefs, I think it's a bit of a setback, and I'll tell you why I say that, because Yusuf Maart was a very integral part of that team that Nabi was attempting to build. It was still in the process of being built. It was very inconsistent, yet I think Mart played a very key and pivotal role, not just in this fast playing, but keeping the morale, keeping the spirit going of the players, and also creating that energy in the team. So bringing in another player was very similar. We speak about Ndlovu. Well, that's for our discussion tonight. Is he going to be very similar? Because I'm sure if you look at the stats, they're very, very similar in the way they play. Very physical in midfield, winning tackles, initiating play. Is he a different option, or is he similar to what they've just lost?
Yeah, Tsepo, it's hard for Mart to turn the move down. Firstly, let's give credit to Chiefs because they've allowed players who've had European offers to go. We saw Siyabonga and Gazana leave. There was offers for Reef Froster, which he apparently turned down the move himself. They aren't opposed to letting players, if there's an offer from Europe, to actually move on. Even Litokwe had an offer that was good for the club and good for the player. So it's still a big blow, though, I think, as coach says, to lose a player that played 80% of your league minutes last year. How do you feel about the move? We talked about their signings, but now they've brought these players through, but now they're weakening their best 11.
Yeah, definitely, Grant. It's a big blow. Where when I look at Yusuf Maart being a captain, he reminds me of Jordan Henderson from Liverpool days, when he was captaining the Liverpool team. It's one of those unsung heroes, but they always there, they're selfless players. They give their heart and soul for the team, so for me, it's going to be a blow. And yeah, it's also opportunity for him on the other hand. And again, man, you still have the young Zwane there, when one leaves, maybe it's an opportunity for the next one to step up, and grab the opportunity with both hands.
Before we move on to who's going to replace Mart, how would you see his overall time at Chiefs? He came for 5 million rand from Sekhukhune. He was in the Bafana squad when he signed. He lost his place to Hugo Broos. Didn't seem to really, enjoy how he was playing for Chiefs. But throughout his time, he's been a regular player. What's your main memory? I think probably the Nedbank Cup final goal comes to mind before, as the forefront of his time at Chiefs. But do you think that was a successful signing? Chiefs got him to the door. They've now recouped a fee. He's getting to about 29. Do you think overall that's been a successful signing for Amakosi?
Well, I do think it was a successful signing because when you looked at him at Sekhukhune, he was the key player. And I think based on his performance at Sekhukhune, Chiefs went hunting for him and they got their man. I think he did extremely well. And I think there's a lot of factors that contributed to the inconsistency, which I think at times, was what Mart experienced. But in saying that, I think when it mattered most, he rose to the occasion. If you look back at the Nedbank, which you've mentioned, besides scoring a very important goal, he was also key in ensuring that they go through very difficult opponents, Stellenbosch, Sundowns, and then ultimately Orlando Pirates. It wasn't an easy road to the final, and I think he played a pivotal role in doing so. Also, you must take into account that this team was in transition of being rebuilt after a very disastrous season before that. When Nabi came in, there was lots of expectations. And dealing with all those dynamics, as I'm sure you guys know, requires leadership. I mean, he's not a very talkative captain. If you look at Mart, he says very little. But I think just his whole demeanor and his actions and the way he rallies around his fellow teammates allowed Kaizer Chiefs to win that cup. I think they would have had a worse season had they not signed a player like Mart, because prior to that, there was a lot of expectation from Novo, who didn't really deliver, inconsistently as well. They tried to find that. They brought in Ketwa in, also didn't do as well. But when Mart was in that particular squad and he played most of the games, they had some stability in the midfield.
Tsepo, last season, Nabi at the start of the season was changing his midfield almost every game in the first few games. It was Mart, and it was Castillo started the season, and Teto was out of favour, came back in. It kept changing. Samkelo Zwane played a few games, fell out of favour. So we have to give Mart credit because he was a mainstay, and he played different roles. He played deep as the 6, he played as an 8 sometimes, even at some games as a 10, and he occasionally scored goals. He took a lot of long shots, a lot of them, sailed over, but you have to give him credit for being such an adaptable player, and Chiefs for identifying him from at that time, Sekakuna were, new in the league. Chiefs deserve him some credit for their recruitment on the Mart deal. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, I would agree. He's a versatile player. He's a player that, also helps the coaches if you want to tweak or adjust the formation during the game. He's one player that can play in a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 with one sitting. He can either fill any position from that midfield pairing or midfield partnership. And again, we have to give him credit because if you look at the Chiefs midfield and their squad throughout the years since he joined, there's a lot of players that come and they struggle, they get swallowed because as a team, they if they're not doing well, a lot of players they get to struggle, and we don't get to see the best of them or with limited game time. But they've been changing other players, but he's been consistently there, for the team. So it shows you the character and the mentality of the player, that he's got a strong character and is made. At some point he was getting like a lot of criticism from the fans, but he's not one to shy away, or at some teams you find players that they can't take the criticism, they fake injuries or they want to get suspended, but he's selfless, and he's got a strong character and mentality. So I would also touch on that, on his the mentality and the character.
Yeah, and now the big question, who replaces him in the team? They signed Siphesihle Ndlovu. He's on a free, SuperSporter being sold. So, maybe there was a small fee before the sale went through, but he's an experienced player. We discussed a little bit in the last podcast, wasn't Ndlovu coming to boost the competition, give Chiefs that depth for the CAF competition? He's going to compete with Mart and Sele and the other options. Now maybe it looks more like he was lined up to maybe replace Mart. Can he do that job? He hasn't been at one of the big 3 for a couple of years now. At Pirates, he didn't really make the grade as a midfielder. Often his actually best games were as a right back towards the end of the one season there. So can he replace Mart? And briefly, do you think they have enough if it's just Ndlovu for Mart, or do you think they should still be looking for a replacement and then Ndlovu competes with those options?
Well, I think the first thing that they need to do is get the balance in that midfield, right? Because as you pointed out, you had Mart playing in different positions. You don't want that. You want a number 6 that's going to play as a number 6. You want an 8 and a 10 so that they get used to playing in those specific positions, especially if you look at the fact that they're going to have the league as well as the Confed Cup to deal with. But in saying that, I do think that he has the grit, the presence in midfield. This is Ndlovu. He's also technically not bad, getting forward. His passing range is good. And on the odd occasion, he can get a goal or 2 as well. The challenge he will have is how is he going to be able to be complemented by the other players, the Sarinos of this world, the Taylors of this world. Are they going to be able to do it in the shortest period of time? Because as you know, when you're constantly building teams from season to season, we never have that situation where the team is now stable enough. I think all great teams, firstly, have a very good leader in midfield. I don't know his leadership qualities. I haven't seen that much because, as you said, at Orlando Pirates, he wasn't a leader. There were players much bigger than him. At SuperSport, he made his mark under Kevin Hunt. But again, I don't think he was the leader in that midfield per se. But in saying that, it's just about the chemistry between the rest of the midfield and obviously the attackers and defenders that will guarantee that he has a successful season. I just personally believe that Chiefs still need to sign marquee players. I think if you look at these players, he's come from a team that was fighting relegation. And again, we see this quite often happening where Chiefs is signing players that have been through a very traumatic season. Now they have to come in, there's expectation. Wearing the Chiefs shirt is not an easy shirt to wear. And suddenly you're faced with all of these difficult aspects. Can he cope with it? Is he going to be able to rise to the occasion? To be quite honest, we'll have to wait and see. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, knowing that this player has those qualities I mentioned, very aggressive. He's got grit and determination. He'll give you 110%. And I think maybe that's a good thing for Chiefs to have a player like that. But I still believe there's room for a player with pedigree who comes in, was just he has had a most fantastic season, who's got tongues wagging. I don't think the signings we've seen has been the case.
And Tsepo, Ndlovu and Mart are a bit different. Mart's maybe more two-footed. He can hit a lot more longer passes and long shots. And Ndlovu's more press-resistant midfield. He can dribble a bit more in central areas. Maybe, as coach says, a little bit more gritty and strong in the duels. Do you think he can sit in that midfield next to Tele? Would you still go for someone like a Yaya Sitole, maybe, who can come in and be that undisputed number 6, and then have the Ndlovus and Teles playing as 8s, trying to have a bit more balance with a Sereno or a Shabalala as 10, or even Ethan Chislett if he plays in there? How do you see the difference in Martin and Ndlovu and how they would adjust here?
As you said, they two different players. Ndlovu he likes to drive with the ball. He's a player that can play also in tight spaces. He's not scared of the ball. Mart was not scared of the ball. So, but with so saying, they need a specialist number 6. A special number 6. When coach says you need a 6 that will play a 6, meaning you need a specialist in each position. You don't need a 50-50, like a half attacking, half sitting. You need a sitting 6 that's gonna protect the defense of Kaizer Chiefs, because when you look at their record of goals against, it also tells the story. And when you look at Ndlovu, he likes to be all over the show. He likes to, he go to the right, go to the left, support the ball. Yeah, he likes to join in the attack time and again. So I would like to see like a signing of a strong number 6, so we can let the likes of Ndlovu to shine, and to express themselves more, because he's the type of player for me that's more like a box to box, or if you want to call him an 8, maybe an 8.
Okay, gents, we've covered it a bit. I think we're going to do another podcast looking at who's going to take over as Kaizer Chiefs captain, because it's been a bit of a revolving door. That armband's been passed around a lot. So I think we're going to do another show and discuss who our option is to take over. But so far, it's a big move for Yusuf Maart as a player, a big decision for Chiefs to offload their Nedbank Cup winning goal scorer and their captain. Let's see how it pans out. Thanks so much for your insights tonight.